Student progress reports. This is a technique we can use to share student reports with parents. To get started, let's take a look at the folder structure we're going to use for this project. In my drive, I have a student progress folder. And we have a master folder, and in the master folder I have the form that we're going to use, and we're going to be duplicating that form, one for each teacher. And then we have, from that form, we have a student progress response sheet, and we have a student master sheet. So really quickly, if I open up the student master project form, this is the form we're going to duplicate and assign to each teacher. We have directions for that. That form creates its own sheet, and we can see that this is a student, and when we select a student that actually has data, and from the pop-up menu, that data pops in there. And then we have a student master sheet, and the student master sheet is pulling data from the master sheet. So we have, this is an important query that pulls that data, and we'll go over some of that as we work through this case. I want to go through the steps on the progress workflow. A little workflow diagram. Make sure you've got a student progress folder in your Google Drive. We will create all the teacher folders and forms from the next slide, and just kind of remind you of that. And then we'll move on to how to create the the student spreadsheets. So you make a copy of the form. First thing to do is to rename it. So I would rename this Teacher G. And then I would file it. So I would click on the folder icon, move it to Student Progress, see that I don't have a Teacher G folder, create a Teacher G folder, create, and move it there. I then need to put some data into this form, and I'm going to do that, and I'm not going to go through the whole thing here because it takes time, but I'll come back here in a moment. You'll see the completed form. So what I just went ahead and filled that out just to show you. I put in some progress. If the math progress is less than the goal, it's going to be red, and so forth. And here's my ELA. Less than should turn out red. Here's my social studies. It's greater than the goal, so going to be green, and greater than the goal going to be green. Now I submit. I have a row of data now, and that was important. I wanted to see that there was a row of data. Now I need to create a Teacher G response sheet, and notice that automatically, because of where we had the form, we see the Teacher G response sheet automatically in there. First thing we need to do on that, we have a row of data. We need to change the name of that to data. Then we need to open up the master sheet. So I'm going to go back here and go to master. I actually need to open up the master response sheet because it has two sheets on it that we want to copy to our new form. So I want to copy the summary and the list. So I copy to an existing spreadsheet, recent, Teacher G, select, OK, and then I want to copy the lists over. We would use this if you want to use Form Ranger. Existing spreadsheet, recent, G, select, done. So we've copied that along with all its formatting. So when we come over here, we will now see copy of summary and copy of lists. I like to just right away come in here and remove the word copy, although that's not necessary. You would not have to do that. Okay, so now notice this data's come across because I've submitted this one row of data, and then notice on summary, we already have data, and here you're seeing where this is already color-coded and working the way it should be. And notice student A automatically populates in there. If I go to student, we don't see anything. As more students are added to this data sheet, this summary will automatically list those students. So that's the actual data for student A. So going back to take a look at our progress workflow, we made a copy of the form, we renamed it, we used the folder icon to create a new folder, move it over there, we viewed the form, filled it out. On the edit form page, we viewed the responses, created a spreadsheet. From the master form spreadsheet, we copied the summary and list sheets to the new spreadsheet. And then this next part relates to creating the new student sheet. So then that was basically how we created the teacher forms. We're going to move on next to how we would create student spreadsheets. Creating the student sheets in our project. Okay, so moving on to how to create a spreadsheet for each student. You would start by, first of all, making a copy of the student master sheet. Now notice immediately on the student master sheet that on this copy, we are still actually pointing to an import range of the master student sheet. So we need to fix that. We need to come over here. If we're working in a, for instance, teacher G, we would want to open teacher G sheet here, and I have to grab this URL. So highlight that URL and copy it. Come back to the copy of the student master sheet that we just made. I have this row hidden, but we need to paste in here in cell A1. I need to paste in this new URL. And when we do that, notice pretty importantly that we get this reference error, and that is a import range reference. I need to allow access. And when I do that, notice I do have information now. All those headers popped in there. Now, if I were to change this, because I happen to know that there is a student comma A, so if I just actually change this, student comma space A, notice the data for student A actually populates in there. But in this case, you're going to type in, Smith, comma, John, or whatever the student's name is. Of course, there's no data for Smith, John. I would also then probably tend to hide that row. It's got that important data in it. So here's what we just did. We made a copy. We changed the URL in A1 to the URL of the teacher's form response sheet, okay? And we changed the name of the row of the student in row 2. Now, what I would do, this copy, by the way, I'm going to check and see where it went to my drive. So that needs to go to student progress. And this is a student G teacher move. Okay. So now if I come back and look at my teacher G, I have copy or teacher G, copy of student master. Oh, I should have actually renamed that too. So this would actually be called, in this case, if it was John Smith, Smith, comma John, or John Smith, however you want to do that. Notice when I come back here, this is Smith John. Now, if I open this spreadsheet, now if I make a copy, and this would become, student, comma A in this case, perhaps. It's already in teacher G. I say okay with that. And now I have a new student for student A. And notice, again, when we did that, we did have to allow access to that. And when we do that, Smith, excuse me, student, and we have data for student A. So again, in a summary, we did follow through the steps in here. We created one student sheet from the student master sheet, put it in teacher G's folder, and then we opened up that one and made a copy of it. It saved us having to change the URL in cell A1. We did still have to authorize and allow access to the sheet. So that should sum up how you do the student sheet.